Biotech DLC is arguably the best DLC we have in Rimworld, with Ideology coming in a close second place. Ideology is amazing, it adds so many new ways to play the game, and it gives us so many new unique playstyles to go along with. But there's one thing that you've probably forgotten even exists in Ideology, and those are Dryads. Dryads are those long forgotten things that are just kind of average in the game and are desperate in need of a buff. And today's mod hopefully fixes that. Introducing Dryad Leather. This mod has got a very misleading title here, and I'm going to show you why as we get into this review. So let's start by looking at the content of the Steam Workshop page. What is there and what do we see? So we start off with the thumbnail here, kind of explains roughly what the mod actually does. Getting to the bulk of things, we have a hell of a lot of text here that is vaguely telling us what's in this mod. This is very lackluster in my opinion. There's a lot of stuff here that needs to be explained in the Steam Workshop page, and I think the inclusion of GIFers and pictures here would be an amazing addition for this. This Steam Workshop page has a huge opportunity to advertise this mod for what it truly is, and it really misses the mark in my opinion. So what does this content actually look like in game? This mod adds 25 brand new leathers that are unique to all the individual Dryads. We have access to one new type of medicine, a brand new drug. We have access to 4 new items of food. 2 of these are accessible from harvesting the Dryads, and 2 of them are accessible through butchering the Dryads. Everything is changed and processed through the crafting spot, the campfire, and the drug lab. So all of these items are unique to individual Dryads. Some of them multi-purpose and some of them we can access through every single Dryad. So for example, here we have a carrier Dryad. This one is one of 2 Dryads that have only got 2 items accessible through them. The carrier Dryad has access to its own individual leather that we can harvest it by killing it, and then we have the food that's also a byproduct of it. This means that every single Dryad has got different uses. No longer just are they doing one single job, we can also now ranch them, if you get where I'm coming from. So let me show you what the rest of them actually do. Next we have the bark skin Dryad. Once again, just like the carrier Dryad, provides us one individual leather and then provides us the actual meat from the Dryad. Next we have the first Dryad that provides multiple different uses, the Chlora Dryad. With the Chlora Dryad, once we butcher it and harvest it for its leather, we have access to the Chlora Dryad leather, we have the dulled Chlora Dryad leather, and then we have the sharpened Chlora Dryad leathered, as well as the food that we can get from it. We'll go more into the Chlora Dryad later in this video because it does have one glaringly obvious issue. Next we have the Woodmaker Dryad. This one produces 4 different types of leather that are all kind of the same, except they have nice pretty colours, as well as producing its own meat as well. This one has been listed for a potential upgrade in the future, but it's not currently available at the time of recording. Next we have the Medicine Maker Dryad. This is the star of the show here. This one gives us a whole host of brand new leathers that gives us access to the dry brosier. We do this by going through the various processes in order to access this. We also get the ability to harvest the Medicine Maker Dryads every couple of days for 4 Dryad herbal medicine, which is better than normal herbal medicine, and then obviously we also get access to the meat when we butcher them. Next we have the Berry Maker Dryad. Like with the Medicine Maker Dryad, this has received a huge upgrade. It now produces lots of different leather that we can then use through processes and stuff. We also now get access to the unique Dryad berries rather than just normal berries, and we obviously can now harvest it as well for the meat. And lastly we have the Gal Maker Dryad. This one previously was arguably the worst Dryad you can get, only being used to make more Goranlan trees, which was so unbelievably niche, you probably never actually used them. Now they have been given a function. We can now properly ranch the Galmaker Dryads, use their leather and their meat to make food. The leather can then be produced into make beef jerky. I mean, Dryad beef jerky, I guess, kind of works. So no longer do they only have one single purpose, and we can now have multiple reasons to use them. So that's all the new Dryad abilities that we have access to and all the different products they now provide to us. And throughout all of that, you can kind of tell there's a theme going on. Lots of different processes are now available to us as the players. So what I'm going to show you next is all the new individual processes we can get. It's almost like turning Dryads into an industrial action here, which I really like. It's great fun and gives them a whole depth of flavor to add to your playthroughs. So let's start by looking at the processes added to the drugs lab. So what we have for the very first one is the Berry Maker Dryad leather. What we can do with this is soak it in the individual berries, and what we do is we change the color and it gives it a beauty bonus. The next process we have is for the Medicine Maker Dryad. With the Dryad Herbal Medicine, what we can do is deconstruct this if you ever really wanted to, and what this does is provide you herbal medicine and then also gives you a large quantity of dry brosier, which is very handy if you wanted to farm that. Next, let's move on and look at the campfire process. The first process that we're going to be looking at is for the Berry Maker Dryad once again. With this, we can burn the leather, and this then reinforces it and makes it a little bit stronger. The next we're going to look at is the very first Chlora Dryad process. This, like with the Berrymaker Dryad leather, this does the exact same. We dull the leather and make it more reinforced. And then lastly for the campfires, we have access to the ability to make our Gao jerky, patent pending obviously. For this one we can bulk make Gao leather and turn it into the rinds, which we can then use as food, which is amazing. Moving on to the crafting spot processes, we have the very first one for the Chlora Dryad. This theoretically sharpens it, and this one is very problematic, as you can see from the stats here. There's one glaringly obvious issue here, which makes this very powerful. Next, we have the Medicine Maker process. This one we take the leather, and what we do is we glean it for the dry brosier, and as a result, we are then given a less quality leather. But we can then reharvest it and refarm it over and over again until we can get a very low quality Medicine Maker leather, which doesn't no longer provide us any dry brosier. This is a fantastic system, which I'm very impressed with. So that's going to be it for the content section here, and as you can tell, there's a lot of decent stuff here that changes Dryads in such a way that makes you question why the mod's called Dryad leather, when really this is a whole redux and industrialization of Dryads. I love the way that we can now ranch them and farm them. I think if we had the addition as well to the content here to allow you to have multiple Dryads, be able to breed Dryads as well, that would take this mod a step further and really give it a kind of farming and industrial vibe to it. But unfortunately, this whole stuff is completely missed out in the Steam Workshop page. The titling being a little bit off, the Steam Workshop page not showing off what's going on with this mod has really let this down in my opinion. The advertising that's done by this mod creator here has just not let it see the light of day, unfortunately, which has really let the rest of this mod down. I think if we get an improvement on the Steam Workshop page, get a little bit more in terms of what we can do with all the individual Dryads, we could even have a unique workbench for changing all the leathers around rather than adding to pre-existing stuff. There's a lot of potential for more here. But what we've got here, I'm a big fan on. It does make me want to play a Dryad playthrough with what we've got here. So for the content section here, I'm very happy giving this a 9 out of 10. We're nearly there for a really good Dryad mod, but we're just not quite there yet. Next, let's move on and look at the quality of the items added by this mod. Now, a lot of the time when I review a mod that's got lots of different items, we'll see a little bit of variation in the quality here, some things that haven't been focused on as much, and there's a lapse of quality here, there, everywhere. Zooming in on all the items here, they look very vanilla. In fact, they look so vanilla, in fact, you could barely tell the difference as to what's been added here. All the texture qualities, all the design, it all feels very vanilla and safe. Personally, I really like that. But I do also like my items to look modded. The one downside of the items here looking so vanilla is it doesn't look modded. And that kind of is a problem when we have a huge stockpile of all these different cloths and leathers. Maybe I want to put all my Dryad leathers in a corner so I can reminisce on how many Dryads I've murdered just to get dry brosier off them. Whilst I do really like what I'm seeing here, I do want the clarification of how this is modded. Maybe change the design a little bit so it doesn't just look like leather and cloth. Give it a little bit of the own personal attention by the mod creator here just to give a bit of variation, you know? So a big focus of this mod is the fact that it's all about leathers. Now obviously in Rimworld we can use those leathers to create armor, we can use it to create clothing, and we can do all those things with it. So what I wanted to do here was just spawn in a load of dusters. Now I could have potentially spawned in each individual duster of a different quality, of a different type of leather here, but that was just so long. I just couldn't be bothered to do it. So what we did here is I just spawned in an absolute load of dusters, and as you can see here, there's a brand new variation of greens and yellows and all these different blues as well. A very autumnal feeling here, which is a very nice color palette that we haven't quite got in Rimworld. And what I really like as well is the random purple duster as well. This comes from the mod as well, and I love the purple color. If you're having a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory playthrough, this would be perfect for it. I really love the addition of brand new colors, and I mean honestly, who's going to say no to more color, more variety, and be able to theme your characters better? So that's going to be it for the quality section here, and generally speaking, I really do like what's going on here. I like all the texture qualities, I love the way that it does actually fit in with vanilla Rimworld, and I love all the brand new colors here to give a variety to our playthroughs, and just to see new colors is always amazing. But that's almost the problem, right? It almost fits in too well with vanilla Rimworld. Now like I said, I do like my modded content to fit in with vanilla, but I like to know it's modded. I like to see the variety, and I like to see new things in my game. And it's almost too similar to vanilla Rimworld. I want to see some variety here. I want to see that mod creators' own personal ability put into the quality of this mod. Now, it's not the end of the world that it fits in too much, and I think it is great, but I'm very, could I see more? Probably. So for the quality section here, I like it, don't get me wrong. but I want to see just the mod creator's own ability put into this mod, not just exactly the same as vanilla Rimworld. So I'm going to be giving it a very solid 8 out of 10. So let's move on and check out the balancing of this mod. Now, when I was pre-recording everything and checking everything out and setting things up, the only thing that I thought of when I came to the balancing was the Berry Maker Dryads leather. Obviously, with the scaling beauty bonus, I immediately assumed that there was going to be some really overpowered, absurdly obscene scaling in terms of the silver value for each individual item here. So that was the only thing that was on my mind. And when I started looking into things more, a few other things popped into mind. So here we have the Royal Berry Blue leather. This is the very last leather that's made in the process of taking the Berry Maker Dryads berries and using them with the leather and soaking it more and more and more till we get this. This is the very last one. And this has got a beauty bonus of 6,400%. This is like Sydney Sweeney levels of beauty. This is chef's kisses beauty, right? So here I was expecting that when we put down a duster here made of Royal Berry Blue leather, it was going to have a silver value of like 1,000,000 silver, right? I was fully confident that it was going to be absolutely obscene and game breaking. Clicking on the Berry Blue leather duster here that's only good quality, it's worth just under 900 silver. Very balanced. I was not expecting this whatsoever. If you compare this to the cost of other dusters, this is a little bit more than a hyperweave duster, and for the amount of time you're going to be spending getting this, makes perfect sense. But during my time spawning all these different things and checking things out, there was a couple of other dusters that blew me away a little bit. So here I have 4 more dusters. These are all made from Medicine Maker leather. Now the assumption here is that these aren't really going to be worth much. What are we using them for? Making some drugs? Yeah, that's nothing. That's going to be whatever. There's no beauty bonus there. They're not very good in terms of their insulation or anything. They're just kind of redundant, really. But when you look further into things and realize the process stuff and realize that every single time that we use these leathers to make drugs, this is a value. This is going to be constantly used, and that is going to be pretty high. So when it comes to looking at the actual values of these leathers, some of these are worth up to 250 silver per leather. That's ridiculous, right? That is a lot. So when we come to actually looking at these individual dusters, funnily enough, they're quite expensive. Going from anywhere from 15,000 silver to 20,000 silver, 25,000 silver, 30,000 silver. These are all of varying qualities as well. Imagine if we're pumping out legendary ones, that's like 35,000, 40,000 silver for just one duster. And we can get these leathers fairly easily. We're just harvesting Medicine Maker Dryads, chopping them up, and that's it. These are at the top of the process list as well. This isn't in the most processed one. This is like the top. These are the ones that have been as little processed as humanly possible. So you don't, there's literally no point gleaning these to get the dry brochure unless that's what you really want. It's too expensive. These is just insane. We need to have a reduction here. I'm not too sure how we can fix this with all the process stuff, but something needs to change. So after the revelation that the Medicine Maker Dryad is literally sitting on thousands and thousands of silver for us, I wanted to look into the actual medicine as well. The medicine in comparison to the herbal medicine. So the Dryad herbal medicine has a higher healing rate and has a higher healing maximum here than the herbal medicine. And honestly, I'm not mad at that at all. We only get a couple of these every couple of days as well. So there's obviously a little bit of balancing for time there. I'm not mad at these at all and think they are generally very balanced. So far with the Medicine Maker Dryad, we have 2 processes that come from it, and one of them is really overpowered and one of them is very balanced. So let's look at the very last one that has access through the Medicine Maker Dryad, and that's getting Dry Brosier. Now Dry Brosier, funnily enough, is just like Ambrosia. It's even classed as the same drug. Comparing Dry Brosier to Ambrosia, Dry Brosier is a lot more addictive and has a lot higher of a recreation gain, and it also lasts a lot longer. But obviously we have the downside that it's a lot more addictive and it's going to take us a lot longer to access it, so we can't have just loads of colonists absolutely addicted to it. Compared to Dry Brosier, that literally cuts it all in half, so it's kind of like the comparing concentrated squash to diluted squash. There's going to be one that's going to be a lot stronger and a lot more addictive, and then we have the one that's just kind of normal. Once again though, I like the way that this is kind of actually balanced. Obviously it takes a lot of time to access the Dry Brosier and we're not going to be having huge quantities of it. Once again, balancing for this makes sense. So far, as you can see, the balancing makes sense so far, with one very obvious exception. So earlier in this video, I mentioned the Chlora Dryad leather. I said that there was potentially something quite problematic with this, and we're going to go into that now. So here I have 3 Chlora Dryad swords. I have one of the normal Chlorodryad leather, I have one of the dulled Chlorodryad leather, and I have one of the sharpened Chlorodryad leathered. So what we're going to do is look at the individual DPS and armor penetration of these, and I'm going to kind of show you where I'm coming from here. So starting with the Chlorodryad leather, just regular one, as we can see here, this longsword hasn't got a very large amount of hit points, which is kind of a theme we'll see throughout the rest of this. Because of this, it's not going to last very long, which is always a nice balancing point. In terms of melee DPS, we've got 14.53 with a melee armor penetration factor of 57%. This is pretty powerful, and this is only a good quality longsword as well. This is very, very good. But obviously, the max hit points here are very low compared to a lot of other things, so this isn't going to last you too long. This one kind of makes sense, honestly. Next, we have the dulled Chlorodryad leather Dryad longsword. This one, as you can imagine, because it's dull, it's got a lowered melee DPS, but has a higher amount of hit points, with a melee DPS factor of 7.27 and a melee armor penetration factor of 28%. This one feels a lot more balanced. I could see the argument perhaps that once we do actually kill a Chlorodryad and we harvest it for its leather, maybe it starts off as dulled and then we can sharpen it to make it the normal, and then we can sharpen it again to look at the sharpened one, which is the one we'll look at next. So next, the sharpened Chlorodryad leather, and looking at the hit points to start with, it only maxes out at 8. So it's very weak. It's not going to last you very long. This is going to be kind of like the gold sword in Minecraft. Looking at the melee DPS here, we're looking at an astounding 29.07 with a melee armor penetration factor of 113%. That is crazy. Like, this shouldn't be even... I don't get it. This is a sword made out of the leather of a Chlorodryad. This is something that you can access with Neanderthals and tribals. This is insane. Now, you obviously can't necessarily picture how powerful this is, so I wanted to test how powerful is a sword made out of sharpened Chlorodryad Dryad. So what I did is I set up a very small test, and very, very simple, might I add. I have one colonist here with 10 in melee, and I've got 4 other colonists set up with flak armor, marine armor, recon armor, and then cataphract armor. And we're going to see how much damage a sword made out of Chlorodryad leather does. And as you can tell, dead, 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 dead. This melts through people's armor like butter. And this sword is made out of the leather of a Dryad. What? This is the first time in a mod review I found a weapon so powerful it one-hit kills everything. This is a first, and I can't believe it's taken, what, 38, 39 mod reviews to get to this point. This is crazy. We need this nerfed so quickly, please. So that's going to be it for the balancing section, and if we ignore the 2 glaringly obvious overpowered things, the rest of the balancing that's in this mod is really, really good. The fact that we have to go through all these individual processes to get the more powerful items, the fact that we all have to just wait for Dryads, the time balancing for the player is amazing here, and it's something a lot of mod creators don't utilize, and this has been done perfectly by this mod creator. The balancing, apart from the 2 obvious items, is really, really, really good, like impressively good. But I've never reviewed a mod before where there's 2 items that are so glaringly obviously overpowered and ridiculous and absurd ever. This is insane. And I have to base it off what I've seen today. For balancing, funnily enough, it's not getting the best of scores. It's going to be receiving a 6 out of 10 here. As soon as these 2 issues have been fixed, it'll go straight back up. But at the moment, it's going to be a 6 out of 10. So next, let's move on to the compatibility. Are there any bugs that you need to know about, and how this fit with your playthroughs? Now, in terms of bugs, me personally experienced absolutely no issues whatsoever. I could potentially see the argument that the issues I had with the extremely expensive dusters and the Chlorodryad's sword being extremely powerful potentially could be bugs that I'm not clocking here, but I don't think they are. So generally speaking, bugs, no problems at all. Now, at this stage, I'd refer to the Steam Workshop page and tell you what the community is saying, but at the time of recording, there are no comments on this Steam Workshop listing. There's nobody in the community saying there's an issue with this, and unfortunately, I can't base that any further. I can imagine, though, if you're playing with mods that also change Dryads in such a way that it changes what they produce, potentially you'll have issues there, but I don't think you will, in my opinion. And then how will this fit in with your playthroughs? Now, unlike any other mod I've covered, because this is part of the Ideology DLC, this does literally fit in with every playthrough you do. It fits in with every single era, and you can use it at any time. But the only problem I've got with this mod and how this fit in with your playthroughs is realistically, are you using Dryads? And the chances are, if you're using the Biotech DLC, you're probably not. Dryads are unfortunately very redundant when you're looking at the Biotech DLC with all the mechanoids and everything, and as a result, the Dryads are just kind of like shooed off and left in the corner, and they're kind of just like shrugging their shoulders because they don't know what to do. The main issue with the compatibility here and the way it runs in your playthroughs is, do you, the player, actually want to use this in a playthrough? And a lot of the time you're going to say, well, no, what's the point? I've got the Biotech DLC, you know? If you obviously haven't got Biotech and you've only got Ideology, this mod is amazing for you, and you'll be able to use this in a really Dryad-focused playthrough, which I think this will benefit hugely from. But overall, in terms of compatibility, there's no bugs that I can tell, and it does fit in certain playthroughs quite nicely. But how often are you actually using Dryads? That's the problem here. So for compatibility, I'm very comfortable giving it a solid 7 out of 10. So next, let's move on to my mod recommendations. Now, as I kind of said in the compatibility section, a lot of the way that you're going to be using this mod is going to be down to your playthroughs and as to whether or not you're going to actually use Dryads. So what I've done for my mod recommendations here is focus on a lot of mods that give you more accessibility to Dryads and make your life a little bit easier using them. So starting with Justice for Dryads, just buff them even further and make them even more viable. Next, we have Vanilla Ideology Expanded Dryads, be able to make a whole playthrough structured around Dryads and give you use for them. Next, we have Vanilla Races Expanded Phytokin, just plants and gardens and things. Next, replantable Goranland trees, so you can set up kill boxes and things around Goranland trees with your Dryads. And lastly, Prune Job. Now, this isn't something you're going to be receiving in a dark alley. This is an actual mod that allows you to prioritize pruning Goranland trees. So as you can vaguely tell, there's a lot of very specific mods there. But because this is part of the Ideology DLC, you can literally just chuck this in like any playthrough that's vaguely vanilla themed. But like I said before, because these are Dryads, you're not really going to use them, unfortunately. They're just not good enough in enough situations that allows you to actually use them, because you may as well just use mechanoids. So for my mod recommendation score, yes, there are some very interesting playthroughs you can get out of this, and yes, it does vaguely fit in with a lot of things, but are you actually? I don't know. So my mod recommendation score today is going to be a 6 out of 10. So now for my conclusion, and I think generally speaking, this mod does an extremely good job of making Dryads actually viable again. And I think the one thing that's letting this mod down and not getting out to more people is the way that this entire mod has been titled and the way it's been advertised to players within the Steam Workshop page. This mod isn't just Dryad leathers. This is a redux of Dryads. This is making them significantly better. This is a whole upgrade to Dryads, and it's an amazing mod to do just that. The leathers are just a side thing. All the other processes, all the other content that comes with that is phenomenal for Dryads and really gives you an actual use to ranch them and turn them into an industrial machine. Like, Dryads with this mod are no longer just something that you have just milling around not doing anything. There is an actual reason now to recycle your Dryads, get rid of the ones that have got a broken leg, and eat them and use their skin to do more things. So for content, I gave it 9 out of 10, quality 8 out of 10, balancing 6 out of 10, compatibility 7 out of 10, my mod recommendation score 6 out of 10, giving it the grand total score of 36 out of 50, which is an extremely respectable B-rated mod. But don't get me wrong, if the balancing issues are fixed with the very overpowered items, this could quite easily be a low A-tiered mod. I think the way that this completely reduxes Dryads and gives them a whole new lease of life is amazing, and it's something that honestly I don't know why Ludion and Tynan haven't done themselves, and it's have to be left to the mod creators. But don't listen to my opinion, check out this mod for yourself, and I highly recommend you do, and form your own opinions of this mod. So if you have enjoyed today's video, consider liking, subscribing, and make sure you tell your mum about me. I'll see you next time. Thank you.